The AI race doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. Just a couple of months ago, we were here talking about how ChatGPT was everybody's favorite, the clear winner. They were pretty much like the Chiefs a couple of years ago, putting up back-to-back records, and it didn't seem like anybody was coming to steal their place. But hold up. Over the last couple of months, we've seen a clear competitor take that first place seat, and Anthropic's Claude doesn't seem to be easing up anytime soon. So today we're going to talk about how Claude has really pulled ahead over the last couple of months, what some of those tools are that they've been putting out there to really grow that gap, and what you should be considering now that there are these different competitors out there. Because let's face it, most of us are probably using the same tool that we started with a couple of years ago. So grab your drink, make sure you got something to sip on, and let's get into it. Three, two, one, we gone. Welcome back, family, to another episode of the First Sip Podcast. I'm your host, Dekimbe Smith, and this week we are sipping on some lemonade with some creatine in there. Nice little mix here. It's getting warmer, people. You know, the summer months are getting here, and this is my favorite time of year. So, we can't be sipping hot coffee and tea at all hours of the day. So we're going to sit here and drink on this nice lemonade and break down what's been going on with this AI race. Because like I said in the intro, a couple of months ago, I talked about how I was utilizing AI and really using it for my business and life just to really help my overall efficiency and make sure, I'm just staying ahead of what's going on with this entire world of AI and technology, because it's every week, every day, it seems to be some update, and I don't want to get left behind. So back then I was telling you guys, okay, some of the different prompts I was starting to, work with in tools like ChatGPT, how I'm using some other tools like maybe, like different plugins with Zapier and, Opus Clips with other workflow kind of stuff. But today I'm here to talk about, because I feel like a lot of people still aren't, maybe like people who aren't super techie and nerdy aren't utilizing Claude yet. And even if you are, you might not be diving into some of the other areas like Claude Cowork, Claude Code, Claude Design, whole bunch of different areas, right? That Anthropic has really started putting out tools to just take up the entire AI LLM ecosystem. Now, I know I might have used a couple terms there that threw you off, but like I said, we're going to get into this and really break down the whole state of this AI race and talk about what's been going on and how they've pulled ahead so fast and so far. Now, starting off with the race, we have about 4 serious players if we're going to consider this, right? Starting with ChatGPT, like everybody knows and loves, right? Which is owned by OpenAI. Then next, we have Claude, right? That's the one that we're going to be talking about most today. And that one's owned by Anthropic. Now, moving over, we also have Google's Gemini. This is another one where if you're, using Google Chrome, Gmail, you might have already started using this one without really intentionally wanting to use it, right? You might just say like, oh, here's this AI thing, let me go ahead and try that out. So that's another one there that really has some good market share. And then of course we have Grok. Now Grok is Elon's LLM, right? Because Elon, if you don't know, was there at the early stages with OpenAI, and because of whatever fallout that they had there, he spun off and said, okay, you know what? I need to create my own AI, my own tool that we can go ahead and compete in this space, because of course everybody knows where the future is going. So he puts out Grok, and Grok has been one of these serious contenders as well over the past year, especially if you're looking for real-time data and social news updates. But we'll talk about that later, right, with the different use cases on how you can pick and choose, okay, like which one should you go with, because everything ain't going to be for everybody, right? Like I like to say. So you should figure out, okay, what is the best use case for this one? And depending on what it is that you have to do at that time and that day, you'll be able to go ahead and decide. So if you're looking at the visual that I got pulled up on the screen here now, you'll be able to see my breakdown here of what's going on with the race, right? So OpenAI, they're like the pioneer, right? Like I said, they're the first one that most of us understood when it came to starting to use these LLMs. And when I say LLM, I'm talking about large language models. That's these models that these companies have created, and they're trained on, you guessed it, large language model, like lots and lots of language, right? So they just pour in as much information, as much text, as much context into these tools and train it on that data. And that's where, once again, when you go ahead and ask it different things, it gives you that information back based on what it's trained on, right? So that's where people say like it's basically trained on everything that's ever been put out there, every sort of digital text, video, every audio transcript, right, that it can get its hands on that's been fed into the system. These tools have the ability to now go ahead and recall and create and formulate new plans, new ideas for you based on what you prompt it to do, right? So ChatGPT was most of our first introductions to the world of LLMs, right? But now, like I was talking about, we also have Claude. Now, Claude is the one where you're going to be going into, that's the deep thinker, right? That's the one where if you're looking to plan things out, you want to talk about, okay, I'm working on my business and I want to build out a 5-year plan and I'm looking to grow my revenue by X amount per year. But I also want to consider some other things, right? So I want to pull in some other information from here and give me a full analysis on that. The comparison of Claude's breakdown of deep analysis to ChatGPT's, in my opinion, and not only my opinion, these are things that are ranked by other people there. Like LLM Arena, they have like these different rankings from actual users. The comparison is night and day, right? Like Claude is so much. It gives you a much deeper level of thinking. Like the thought process seems a lot clearer. And also, like, if you've ever used ChatGPT, the way it kind of like freaks out sometimes, like what you call hallucinations, can really throw you off, especially if you're trying to build something out for a while. And I've had projects that I've been building out now on Claude for weeks. And that's not even getting into the technical side when you're using, some of the coding tools, if you want to create like a landing page, a website, those different things. But just talking about it from, okay, like if you have like an idea that you really want to break down and work, I'm going to go ahead and take that into Claude after maybe I do an initial brainstorm or whatever it is, if I'm still using ChatGPT. But like I said, you can just go ahead and use Claude for the majority of this stuff now. ChatGPT, if you're really asking me, I love its image generation updates that it just came out with. If you haven't messed around with it, go ahead and do that, because it's actually how I'll tell you, it's how I created this image here. So it's incredible on that side. But like I said, the deeper thinking, the all the other stuff, I'm gonna go with Claude. Now, going over to Google's Gemini, right? Like this is where I was talking about before. This is the one that's integrated pretty much into everything that you might already be using if you're somebody who utilizes Google Suite, right? So if you're using Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Sheets, Docs, everything, you're going to see that little button right in the right-hand corner showing, okay, hey, you can click this and utilize Gemini to do different things on the platform that you're currently using for Google. But of course, it has also different context and different abilities from some of these other tools. One of the biggest ones, especially for somebody who creates content or works on YouTube, it has the entire YouTube context, right? Because of course, Google owns YouTube, Google owns Gemini, so they're able to plug all of that in together and train their LLM with a different level of just information and context that some of these other tools don't have. Now, of course, you can pull some of this information and feed it into these other tools, but Gemini already got that, right? So this is where, like I said, when you're talking about how you're going to go ahead and differentiate which one should I use in which case, that's where that comes up. But and the final one, like I said, in this state of the AI race is Grok, right? And now Grok is the challenger that's really coming in strong because people find it really easy to use. If you're already on Twitter, or X as I should say, you can go ahead and pull that one right up, right, and say like, hey Grok, is this true, or like what's the state of what's going on here? So for the real-time information, you really can't beat that one because it's there, and it's probably one of the fastest and strongest when it comes to being able to get you that information back. Now, moving on, right? Like I said, the race has completely changed, right? Because we saw ChatGPT was the one that was the clear winner, right? 2 years ago, there was nobody else even in the conversation. All the money was going to OpenAI. We were all stunned at how fast they were growing and all the different connections and partnerships that they were making. But then, you see some things. It's actually crazy to see how fast their brand has just fallen to the wayside and broken over the last 6 months now, between Sam Altman, just becoming public enemy #1, and now, like I said, Anthropic and Dario, their CEO, stepping in and saying, hey, we're going to do things differently over here. If you guys rock with this, come over to us. And if you didn't know, the founder of Anthropic, Dario, he was actually the VP of research. He was a VP of research over at OpenAI, and he ended up leaving, due to some other fallout over there. It's always interesting because they got a lot of fallout that happens with these companies. So, he left and started his own thing, and now they are taking OpenAI's lunch in less than a 3-year period, right? And that's what I wanted to move into next, because when you talk about how fast they've been able to close that gap, it's actually one of the craziest things that I've read about in quite a while, right? So Anthropic just announced that they've reached annualized revenue rate of $30 billion a year, right? And now, okay, they're making $30 billion a year, cool, whatever that means. Back in January, like if you're looking at this, right, let's say December to January, they were right around $9 billion a year. 9 billion to 30 billion, right? That's right at the end of April 2026 that they landed at $30 billion. It took them less than 3 years, once again, to go from creating the company up to $30 billion a year. It took Salesforce 20 years to hit $30 billion from their creation. The tool that we all use, you know, if you're working for any big company, even medium-sized company, you're probably going to use Salesforce at some point in time to do any sort of like client management, CRM work, or just think of it as a basic CRM, right? And when you think about that, okay, one of the biggest, you know, like enterprise tools nowadays, it took them 20 years to hit $30 billion. And Anthropic did it in less than 3 years. And it doesn't seem like they're slowing up, because there's recent reports. Once again, I said this is May 9th that I'm filming this. It seems like there is a change every single week. And recent reports are coming out that they might already be closing in on $40 billion a year. Now, what's one of the biggest drivers of this? It's their enterprise control, right? Now, when you look at how many companies are starting to go ahead and lock in with Anthropic, it's actually pretty crazy. Because that's the thing, like once again, when you talk about taking up market share for some of these tech companies, it's like they're running the play from what Microsoft did, right? You talk about another tool that we all use in our day-to-day. If you're working for a big company, you're probably using Microsoft Teams. You're probably using, you know, like some sort of tool from Microsoft to go ahead and get through your day-to-day. Word, you know, whatever it is, like Excel, like all the different tools that Microsoft has to offer are integrated into most corporations. So when you talk about enterprise level purchasing and those type of contracts that they get, those are that's billions and billions and billions of dollars in revenue for companies like Microsoft. So now you look at Anthropic, they've been able to do it with over 1,000 enterprises, right? Like 1,000 different companies that have said, okay, we're going to pay you more than $1 million a year to go ahead and utilize your product. Now that's pretty crazy, because not only are they now getting the, you know, they're getting the money from these people who are using their product, but they're also getting such constant feedback and constant data from the people who are using it, so they can keep improving the product. And on top of that, Anthropic is using Claude and Claude Code in their own company to write their own code, right? I was reading saying somewhere the other day where it said that Anthropic is writing most of their code utilizing Claude Code, and the engineers are just sitting there basically just like architects, right? And just kind of like managing it and making sure that everything is working structurally. Okay, if we need to make some tweaks here and there, but they're kind of just, okay, this is what the objective that we're looking to go ahead and execute it. And then once the end goal is produced, they just go ahead and say, okay, cool, on to the next thing. So think about that, and think about how fast they're able to move now compared to past tech companies like we've talked about before when it comes to going through the iterations and making constant improvements. Nobody else is able to keep up with Anthropic right now. And I'm interested to see what happens now with their recent announcement that just happened, where they're going to be able to start using the data centers from Elon, right? From Grok. Like, he has his data centers, and that's a whole different conversation. I got to probably do a deep dive on the world of data centers and what's going on with that, with the business side, because it's something that's really starting to shake America. I know I kind of went off on a side tangent here, but very interesting stuff going on here in America with these data centers that are being constructed. But going back to that, like I said, Anthropic and Elon, they were able to strike a deal, and now they're going to collaborate, right? Let them use their data centers. So their processing power is going to be increased by, I don't even know, let's say like 10x, because that's another issue that they've run into over the past couple of months. With this increase in revenue, with this increase in usage on their platform, they've also had an increase in problems, right? I was talking to my friend the other day. Me and him, you know, we're always texting about different things we're doing on the LLMs, like in the different chats, like throughout the week. And we're always like, man, is Claude down for you right now? Like, I can't believe I hit my usage already. He's like, yep, I hit mine too. And I was just like, yeah, it must be a bug. And then you go on Twitter and you see other people are dealing with the same thing. So those are some things that Anthropic is dealing with on the technical issue side. But like I said, it seems like they are just rolling with the punches and ironing out whatever deals they need to iron out and keeping things moving. So to end it off here, like I said, no model wins everything right now, right? You have to figure out what is going to be the best use, what is going to be the best chat for you to use at the time, right? Are you going to go with ChatGPT for your everyday kind of brainstorming stuff? Or are you going to go with Claude for your deep planning, right? I actually got a nice little visual here, right, that I pulled up and made for you guys. So if you're watching the video, as I said, you got to check it out on YouTube. If you're just listening here on the podcast side, but you know what I pulled up here, right? So like ChatGPT is going to be like your all-purpose chef's knife, right? So that's going to be the one you can go in, chop up all your vegetables, right? Your regular day-to-day stuff. You can't really beat it out from that standpoint, right? Really easy to use. It's everybody's favorite, right? Now going over to Claude, that's where you got your precision slicer, right? Like this is going to be the one. Like I said, if you want to do some deep analysis, you want to do some deep work, you got some stuff you really got to get through and want to get some nice, you know, like some nice cuts on, some nice fine chef work, go ahead and work with Claude. You will not be disappointed because the level of complexity that you can do with this thing it's beautiful. And I can't even, like I say, I can go on for another 30 minutes about the things that I've used Claude for. You just got to get your hands on it and test it out and be like, yo, I see what you're talking about. Now, the next one, like I said, Grok. That's going to be your specialty knife, right? Okay, if you want real-time information on a specific thing that's going on, the war right now with Iran, right? Like, okay, what's going on with China? You know, are they moving in on Taiwan? All these different things that might be popping off in different random corners of the world. Grok is really good for that. Like I said, that real-time news data, because it's feeding off of everybody else's information that's being fed into X at the time. And when you look at that, that is such a good feed, right? Like that's such a good constant news feed. And we've all used X, right? And Twitter. You go onto those platforms and it's like, if you want to know something that happened 2 minutes ago, if you're watching a game, if you want to know something that happened a minute ago, it's there for you. So use Grok for that one, right? That quick, whatever that specialty cut is, go ahead and use that one. Now, Gemini, right? Now, Gemini, the creative finesse knife. Now this is going to be the one, okay, like if you ever go to like those restaurants where they got the super swirls, you know, and like the really nice, like artistic plates. And it's just like, oh, wow, that person looked like they really took their time to do some really cool creative work with that. That's going to be Gemini, right? Like Gemini comes in that capacity, not only because of that tool, but because of another one that I think is like a branch of it, which I've talked about before in another episode, which is NotebookLM, right? Now, when you talk about like the ability to use and create different like educational materials with NotebookLM and Gemini, it's incredible, especially if you have to do training in your company, you know, in your office there with a couple of your team members. Maybe you're doing a presentation, you know, to a larger group of people. You can go ahead and drop in, okay, let's say you've put together the context of what it is you want in your presentation, in your slides. Go ahead and write that all out, right? Break it down, maybe throw it into Gemini, say, hey, clean this up for me because I want to create a slide deck off of it. Boom. Now drop that over into NotebookLM, and then you press the slide deck button, right? It's right there on the right side. And then just watch it work for the next 60 seconds, 2 minutes. And I'm telling you, you will be very impressed by that slide deck that it gives you. And of course, there's other tools out there like Gamma that lets you create different presentation decks and those kind of things. But I'm telling you, like if you need to do this stuff in a fast way, like I've used it before, like I said on different podcast episodes, you won't be disappointed with Gemini and NotebookLM. So go ahead and, you know, figure out, like I said, which is going to be the best knife for you to use in the moment, right? Whatever you're got going on in the kitchen, and you let me know, because like I said, I know some of you guys might have been using one tool for the most part, but I want you to try to figure out, okay, what's the thing that I can do? You know, let me try to pick one task. Let me find one thing that I'm doing on a regular basis, maybe on a daily basis, and let me compare it between the two AI models, right? I'll start off with ChatGPT because I always use that one. But now let me put this one into Claude. Same context, same prompt, and let me just see what type of information it gives me back, right? How do I, you know, feel with the way it's asking me questions? You know, do I think this is going a little bit deeper, or do I feel like I'm getting the same results, right? So like I said, you evaluate that, see how it's going, and then from there, you say, okay, which one do you like best? Do you like the way Claude is working for you? Because now you're able to really build something out, and it's like, oh wait, it's giving me different visuals now. Like I said, if you're somebody who needs to put together like proposals or a media kit, different presentations, test it out. You'll be very surprised. And I didn't even get into the way you can use Claude to connect to other tools that you might also be using on a regular basis. That's something we could talk about, like I said, on a future episode, like how I use it with things like connecting to my newsletter, to see like, okay, what's going on with the subscribers, who's opening certain emails, what's being read, what's not being read. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to the email right ahead in the description down there. So those are different ways, like I said, that I'm using it in my regular day-to-day, but I always want to keep you guys up to date too, because I know you got your stuff going on. We're all busy people, but I want you to know what's going on here so you can stay up to date and so we can all keep moving forward. So let me know what you guys are using right now. Go ahead and drop a comment, send me a text. Let me know what tool you've been playing around with for the last couple of years. And until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and as always, enjoy your first sip.